All right, everyone. So this is honestly a take two. I was having some technical difficulty when one of you came on, and I apologize for that. Very curious. I'm not at home. I'm on location. So I'm using my backup laptop. I don't know. So I will get this recording to you as soon as I can. So sorry for the effort that you had to try to figure things out with me. And I appreciate your grace and patience. So today we're going to be talking about steps toward an emotionally vibrant family life. And this is kind of the middle course, the middle part of the program. And so it's going to become a bit more intentional, interactive on your part in your membership portal for today. You'll see under the description for today some documents that you can actually open up. I would encourage you to print out 2 copies of each page, and you can refer to them when you're watching this recording. And so, again, if you're watching this later, let me just explain. This video has been made for the Equipping Moms program, mentoring program. For Cultivate a Better Life mentoring programs. And the Equipping Moms is really the first level. So it's this video series that you're seeing probably later is really a 12-week program, kind of a basic level. But some participants want ongoing mentoring. And so after really, how old am I now? 22 years. I'm not 20 years old, but after 22 years of ministry, I really have a heart to pour out to people. A whole bunch of stuff that I've learned through doing mentoring ministry and my own learning, my own life learning. And so that's what I'm doing. And so some of you will want to just keep going through these programs, these levels of these programs. And let me just say also, for those of you who are active participants right now, and you're seeing it before most people will, if you have not already finished watching the foundation video series, I'd encourage you to go to one of those videos and make sure. I tried to pick 5 topics that I knew I would be coming back to. I wanted to give you a really scriptural foundation for a lot of the things that you've already heard me talk about and that I will continue to talk about. Seasons and dealing with hard times, spiritual warfare, and just understanding spiritual realities. And there's just some 3 other different videos. So you can always go to those. There are people who may not join the program, but they can just purchase those access to those 5 foundational videos. So for those of you who are watching this, steps towards an emotionally vibrant family life. And so I'm going to actually share my screen right now, and I'm going to have to share it a couple of times. All right, so why are we going to do these assessments or these worksheets? Changing a family culture requires a different approach depending on the role or position in your family. A parent of minors, so those in active parenting with kids under the age of 18, we have more ability to change the culture of our family and the dynamics in our family life than a teen member of the family or a young adult. So, I have 4 young adults. They don't have as much influence. They have some, but not as much influence as my husband and I on their younger siblings. So they may see things they want to change, but they don't have as much clout or influence or responsibility to make those changes. Say an in-law, say if you have a mother-in-law or father-in-law, or some other relative, say if I had another relative who looks at the culture of my family and wants to bring some change because they don't like how we do some things. Well, they don't have as much influence. We are family, an extended family, but they don't have the same influence I do. So those in active parenting always have more ability to change the culture of their family than any other person in the extended family system. Since individuals have free will, merely telling a family member, you need to stop this unhealthy behavior, whether it's your 11-year-old kid, whether it's even in the extended family, that's not going to work. It doesn't matter what the unhealthy behavior is. You can make them aware of it, but you can't just tell them to stop and expect them to stop. A lot of this unhealthy behavior you may see might be something like enabling addictions. Enabling and codependency is very common actually in family systems. The culture of some families, even are like calling each other names as a source of fun. Maybe you have, or you've seen families where the kids just are always disrespecting their elders or making fun of others, gossip, talking about things. These are parts of some cultures of some families. And so we can recognize these things, but we have to have reasonable expectations on how they're going to change. And those who are in active parenting have more influence over their younger children. Behaviors and mindsets are like deep trenches in the brain and the soul. And those of you watching this understand that by now if you've heard a lot of my teaching. So whenever we find something we want to change in our family, whether it's our kids, husband and family, or wife, if you're a husband watching this, or if it's even in the extended family system, we do need to live out that change first. So the key verses for today, Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 17 verse 1, better is a dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of feasting and strife. Proverbs 19:8, one who gets wisdom loves his own soul. One who keeps understanding will find good. And this week I wanted to pick some very simple scriptures that you can memorize, that you can, some of your young kids or even older kids may want to memorize these with you. But these scriptures really speak to emotion, the intents of the heart, motivations, and reactions and behaviors that come from those, and when a gentle answer turns away wrath. I've had to learn, those of you who've read my book, Cultivating the Souls of Parents, know that I dealt with anger, and I've had to learn, and it's real, I've seen fruit, that when one of my kids responds to me in a way that used to really trigger my anger, God has done a wonderful work in my heart and mind. And I now can answer gently because I know the power of gentleness. And that gentle answer actually dissipates what would have ended up being a very bad situation, not volatile, but just tense situation. But I used to meet their bad attitude with my own bad attitude, and it always got worse. And that's the second part of that verse. But a harsh word stirs up anger. So this is a wonderful thing we can teach our kids. Little kids aren't going to care. They just want to react. And that's understandable. That's where they are in life developmentally. But as they get older, we do want to teach them self-restraint. We want to teach them that, yes, your sibling should not have said this to you. However, the way you respond is going to make a difference. And you can ask them, do you want peace or do you want a big, big fight and mom and dad having to get involved? Which do you want? Which is better for you? And so as they get older, this is kind of how we can help them think through and really appreciate the value of gentleness and a right response to conflict. In all of these verses, actually, many of you know that my husband and I will be doing our first webinar, parenting webinar, July 10th. Many of you are already registered, but we're going to be doing this seasonally. So different topics all the time, but we're going to be really getting into emotion and family life for this July webinar. So Proverbs 17:1, very interesting. Proverbs 19:8, the first session that I did was, do you love yourself? And so this proverb teaches us one who gets wisdom loves himself. An aspect of loving ourselves is getting wisdom. And we know that God will give us liberally when we ask for wisdom. The New Testament tells us that. And one who keeps understanding, we not keep it, not discard it. We want to keep it, will find good. How do we keep understanding? When we learn things, we grapple with them, we meditate on them, we think about them, we put them in our heart. That becomes, we understand how things work, and we keep and we hold on to what we've learned. We will find good. So we're going to wrap with our families this week or two. And you can make up a song, cool song with the acronym if you want to, but just to remind you what WRAP, W-R-A-P means. So words, whether they're spoken or read, heard, you're going to recognize the impact on yourself. And ultimately, you're going to teach your kids when they're ready to recognize how someone's words affect them. You want your kids to be emotionally intelligent in terms of how to verbalize or communicate what they're feeling. And so they, at some point in time, you're going to teach them, when you heard this, think about how it made you feel. Think about, and you know, all of the different array of feelings, or, even teaching them that, did you feel a ting in your heart? Did you feel anger in your belly? Especially with little kids, to kind of figure out how you can describe some of the really physiological effects that emotions will cause. Did you start to shake, fear, nervousness? How did what you read, what you saw, what you heard, recognize the effect it had on you? So recognizes the R. And then A is acknowledge or write your answers down. For you as the parent, jot it down, journal it, to put it in front of you and just begin to think through, okay, Lord, where does this come from? It had this effect on me, help me sort this out. But just that acknowledgement, intentional acknowledgement, in terms of finding out the answers to why the impact was what it was. And then pray. We always want to pray, end in prayer. And those of you who are actively in the course right now know the prayer that I've written out in terms of just really releasing God's power into every aspect of our personhood, and to bring it into shalom, into completeness, into peace, into rightness with his intents and desire for our lives. And so we're going to take this week or two to track and pray through, and part, if you have some kids you think would find this fun, incorporate them in this. And the whole reason for these activities this next week or two is to become aware. And when we become aware, we will find that it becomes easier to detect our own emotional gauge, where we are in a given day, why, what triggered us, did we not sleep well? But we're going to become more aware of what things impact the emotions of our children, both good impact or negative impact, or not just our children, but our spouses on any given day. And so right now I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to do a different share. I'm actually going to show you these worksheets. And so the first one is the emotional gauge access, and you can just put your family name here if you want, or you can put the week that you're going to do this. The date, of course, goes here. You don't have to do it every day, but just, I think for us moms, it might be a little too much to try to do this every day, but just whatever day, pick a day. And then activity or person. So you're going to print out 2 copies of each page. 1 copy, I want you to do this for yourself. And so you are the person. What, in a given activity, how did it make you feel? Sometimes actually, I'm cooking dinner and I start feeling like really angry, honestly. And I sometimes even cooking dinner becomes a battle in my mind, in that, do they appreciate me? Every day I have to come down and I'm doing this and I never get a thank you, just, random, not all the time, but whatever activity, if there's an emotion or a mood that it puts you in, what you say. And also do this for yourself, in that if there's, say, one of your kids or your spouse, and you notice they're in a mood, what does that do to you? How does that affect you? Okay. Some of these things do help us recognize even aspects of codependency. Someone in your family says something, does it trigger something in you? Okay. And so you're going to do this for yourself. And then, and you may not necessarily fill out every column, because I do have some duplicates. But when you're doing it for your family members, so you'll write down, one of, say child number 3 or something, um, if we're dealing with a person versus an activity. And, child number 3, say you have an 11-year-old and they're just irritable one day. And in their irritability, they start saying things. You want to just take note of that. When it comes to activity, and let me just go to the together time activity for a minute. Many families do different things together, play together, do devotionals together, whatever. And what I encourage you to do is begin to notice those activities that you would rate positive, 8, 9, 10, that everyone in the family or the majority of the family is having a good time, is peaceful with one another, getting along. However, there are activities that you guys do regularly and they're always a struggle. And I'm not talking about like food prep, getting your kids to help you set the table or whatever. Some of that is necessary. You can certainly put it down. And if it's a 2, then you just know, you're going to have to do some things to help them understand their responsibility in the family. But for example, what if it's something even good like a devotional, and say, your husband really wants to do a devotional every Saturday morning at, 7:30 a.m. because his parents did it growing up. But boy, getting the kids up and out of bed and cooperative and listening the whole time, it's just really a struggle. And then your husband gets irritated because they're just not listening. And, let me just say this, family devotionals are great. But if that activity, you would rate it like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, it might not be the best activity for this season. The desire to impart faith to your children, that needs to be there, but it may need to look differently, be at a different time of day. And so this together time or activity is just a way to look at some of the different activities that you and your family do on a somewhat regular basis, and what works and what doesn't, what could be changed. Are you holding on to something? Is your husband holding on to something because it's a tradition? Even your kids, are there certain toys or games they play that they're able to get along better than other games or toys? Or times of day, do they get along better in the morning than the afternoon or evening? And if so, you might want to have them do more independent things in the afternoon or evening. So again, this is just a way to be aware of what's working and what's not working. And so, if it's an activity that say 2 out of 5 of your kids are doing, you can just put the names of those 2 kids. What kind of emotions come up when they're not getting along? Are they saying certain things? But, say if there's a great activity, put that down too. Child 1 and child 3, they're always laughing together when they're doing this activity. That's a good thing. And that you can, if people are bored or whatever, you can say, all right, child 3 and 1, why don't you guys go and do this, if they need that idea. And so, you might not necessarily fill out every blank every day. I'm sure if you try to incorporate every member of your family, you'll write down something, words that the person spoke. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come down and you're going to do the wrap. Now, this is something you're going to do yourself first. And if you have some children you think are ready to learn the process, then you can use this for them. And so, check out which day you actually do the exercise, and then just go through WRAP. And here's some helps down below. And so, for yourself, again, you're going to have 2 copies, one for yourself. So when you heard your kid say this line or repeat this from the TV, how did it make you feel? Were you angry? Were you scared? Oh my gosh, what are they learning from this TV show? And then ask yourself, why did it impact? Why did I just get so fearful? And it might be a reasonable answer. And then did you ever remember experiencing impact like this before? The next page, what does this impact tell me? How I'm informed by what I heard or read? That might be they don't need to be watching this particular show because they're saying things from the show or too often or repeating it. And then a prayer for your child, for yourself, to give you the courage to say, okay, child number whatever, or children, you're not going to be able to watch this show. It's not a good show for this time in your life for you. Lord, give me courage to tell them. And just ask the Lord and just say a prayer. It doesn't have to be this particular prayer, but say a prayer. So you're going to do this for yourself. So when you begin to incorporate, your husband, if you're a woman, or if you're a dad watching this, your wife, or if you're beginning to incorporate one of your children, helping them learn the process, you'd write down that family member's name, and say it's Jimmy. Okay. And Jimmy heard his brother Peter say this. And it really made, ask him, when you heard Peter say they get in a fight and Peter says something negative, but Peter's too young to kind of get into this right now, but Jimmy's older and he's ready. And you can say, Jimmy, when you heard Peter say this to you, how did it make you feel on the outside of your body? Did you feel any, like your heart start pounding, or did you feel just kind of some strength build up, and you're just trying to put words behind like an adrenaline rush, which when we get angry, we get an adrenaline rush. How did it make you feel on the outside of your body? How did it make you feel on the inside of your body? What thoughts did you have at that moment? They might say, I hate Jimmy or Peter. I'm talking to Jimmy. But just getting them aware, giving them words to help them know how they're feeling. Do you know why it made you feel this way? Why did his words? Because he doesn't think I'm as good as him at this game. Okay. Why do you believe he's right? And the Holy Spirit can lead you to asking secondary subsequent questions. Have you ever felt this way before? Do you always feel this way with Jimmy? Yeah. Well, they might say yes always, but say, do you really? What about yesterday? Did you feel, well, no, and just taking them through that process. And what do you think about the way you feel? What do you think God thinks about the way you feel? And our kids need to know that emotions are legitimate. There's a legitimate place. What does God want us to do with our emotions? How does he want us to react? And, again, I just have some suggested questions, but you all can figure out, the questions that are right for your kids as you go through, helping them acknowledge, this is what it did to me. I didn't like it. It made me feel less than him. And because of my reaction, I know that I need to forgive, or I need to be more secure. This is your child realizing that I need to not care so much what my sibling says. I need to know what God thinks about me, and then just inviting them to pray with you, and just helping them. Lord, take that hurt part of me where my feelings were hurt, and make it feel better, and help me not feel less than my brother, or just help nothing set into my soul concerning my brother. And so that's what you can do if you have kids that are old enough to be ready to learn the process. And you can just mark down the days that you did it. And any other notes. I know this is not a huge sheet, but email me, Tina, at Cultivate a Better Life, if you have any questions with that. And if you have any feedback with even the worksheets, if you say, Tina, this is kind of confusing, please let me know. I really appreciate those comments all the time. And so we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. So try to do it 2 to 3 times a week, and maybe for 2 weeks, I think would be best, because, you may have a vacation week and things just are different, but you want to do this. But it's best done 2 weeks in a row, especially to see patterns that really do need to be addressed. And you are tracking what words are spoken and the emotion of the person speaking. Does this person always, what type of emotion do they say certain words? Sadness, heaviness, anger, frustration. And I'm talking again to parents, not just of young kids, but teenagers. You're tracking what regular actions, activities, or behaviors a person is doing, and the emotion of the person doing them. Does one of your children have an activity that, man, they just keep getting um, um, disgusted with themselves or frustrated with themselves? Well, you might need to find a new activity. I had a child who just was hard on themselves, with certain really physical, like sports stuff, and I just really had to transition them. Not that they stopped doing sports, because all my kids are athletic, but at this young age, I needed to um, kind of incorporate some other activities, non-physical activities, into their life, so that they would find things that they can do and be happy while doing it. And again, lastly, you're tracking together time, the activity that's done together as family, and you're rating the experience from what you assess the whole family experience. You're rating it on a scale of 1 to 10, and then deciding, or realizing, this family activity just doesn't work for us. Let's find something else. Okay. After you complete your second or third day, you might see enough patterns to be able to say, what family habits can be easily changed? Say if it's that dinner prep, manners, their attitudes. Oh, that might not be so easy to change, but you can at least begin to address it and talk about, our responsibility within the family for family things like meal times. Spoken phrases, if you might notice, we tend to say this all the time, and that's not really an edifying phrase. Or again, activity choices. What family activities generally bring positive emotional experiences? Those are the ones to keep doing to build family relationships and bonding. When you get, if any of your kids have cell phones, or you or your husband, does cell phone use just detract or enhance good family bonding? And honestly, to write enhance was hard for me, because I recognize how often our cell phones are around us or in our hands. And I'm not fond of bonding over cell phone use. But I've recognized, perhaps, particularly my young adult children, that I can't change them. And they will share videos or jokes, or they'll actually share like Christian teachings together, and look at that and listen at the same time. And so, the cell phone has become this, it's just this device that has so much in it. But, if we're going out to dinner, say for my birthday, I'm wanting some good conversation. I don't really want to see the cell phones out. For me, that would detract the type of bonding that I want. Now, my husband may have a different position, because, if there's a game on and they all love sports, so well, they might want to keep their eye on the score, and that's what they're bonding over. This is not my birthday. This is just a family outing. And so I've had to learn really not to be critical of what they do, because of my own preferences. How much time does any member of your family spend alone in their room or stay to themselves? Well, that's a sign something may be going on if they're always leaving the family environment to be alone. It's a sign. It doesn't mean it is, but it can be a signal. How much time does your teen spend outside of the house? And so, a lot of teenagers get to the point where they're more bonded with their friends than their family. And that doesn't contribute to a future family connectivity, which is God's heart. God wants, no matter how old our kids get, He wants the family bond and that emotional shared experiences and emotional connection to remain. And so, particularly with teens, they're at a very huge transition in their life. And so they're being exposed to a whole lot. If they're spending too much time out of the environment that you are trying to create in your family of faith, of positivity, of intentional seeking of the Lord, and bonding, then they're not going to be a part of that. And they might be getting totally the opposite. And so it's something to really take note of, and that you and your spouse may have to talk about changing. And I'm not talking about when they're in school, but, for me, if my kids are in school and away from the house, I homeschooled for 20 years, but for my younger kids, if they're out of the house, 40, well, maybe not, I don't know. I'd have to add it up. A lot of hours a week, then, when they ask for a play date after school or on a weekend, I'm like, you have spent time with your friends. Let's have some family time. Um, yes, we want to understand the influences. Not that friends are bad, but we want to continue to make sure that the influences are going to be positive influences that are for their good, for their future. Okay, so identity is tied to belonging to a defined family system whose views are naturally passed down. Um, so family identity, and just with what I was talking about with teens, a lot of teens begin getting their identity outside of family. And let me just say, I know that there are some family systems that are destructive, and they may find a friend's family that is actually safer. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm trying to give a biblical picture of God's desire for family life, the way God wants things to be within a family system, and that our identity, we can have friendships, but He's put us in a family for a reason. So, this is not a rule, because there are those times where there are some young adults even who they recognize that there's a lot of dysfunction. They need to make some boundaries, and perhaps their friends do become more of a family, or we have had people over the years who've become a part of our family, maybe because their families are distant physically, like geographically distant, or emotionally distant and just not safe. It says God puts the lonely in families. I think that's in the book of Genesis. I'm not sure. You can look that up in a search engine. But God, He doesn't just leave them be. He wants them in families. Even, they may have their friends, but He wants to give them a family experience. I had a friend who moved to our area when I think she was 26, 27, and her family was from the other coast. And we brought her in. And I remember at one of the first dinners we had, she said she had never sat down to a family meal before. And so this was a new experience. And so as she became part of a family, just spending a lot of time in our home, she was now getting, it wasn't her family, but she was getting a family experience. And that is what I'm talking about. Now, her identity, she couldn't identify totally with our family, but she began to understand God's intent for family and family identity. While some of this is critical for healthy human development in terms of identity, at some point we have to stop and evaluate what we caught in our families and what our parents and older relatives intentionally taught us. And so again, these exercises are to observe patterns of behavior, words that are said, things that are imparted, what's been caught, and what we need to do about it. Do we need to change something? And my last sentence here is, what did we pick up that affects our views of others? And that is from my book of Culture Changers. And so, you might, you guys are watching something and you hear your kid say something about someone of a different race or ethnicity, or someone, just from a different country, and it's negative. But where did he pick that up from? Is that something that he's heard a family member say, a relative say? And we want to love one another, no matter what they look like or where they're from. And so just fruit from the assessment, this is what the goal is. 1, identify the destructive tendencies, the family activities that aren't working well, the words that one of your kid or many of your kids are speaking about themselves that is not going to be to their benefit, that is really tearing their soul down. Anger, um, the kid that stays by themselves all the time. Identify these things. Get a picture for you get a picture of what your family could look like when operating in a different mode. And this is just say, Holy Spirit, show me what you want my family to look like, just give me a vision. 3, begin to behave and speak differently. And so you can then model that with your kids to an extent. The differences, speaking kindly, affirming your kids, just modeling, constructive words for one another, and even praying, reading your Bible in front of your kids, praying in front of your kids, all these things. Create a manner, about you that directly opposes the dysfunction, but stay humble. And so, if you say you're with your extended family, and there's a lot of gossip, well, you're not going to participate in that. You're going to create a manner about you that opposes the dysfunction, or if this, whatever is said, whatever is done, behaviors, reactions, even with, people reacting in kind, if there's a criticism towards a family member, and so they get criticized, person A and person B. Well, then, if you get criticized by person A, you're not going to respond like person B. You're going to respond with a gentle answer. So you can just kind of think about those types of things, and then pray regularly and serve your family members in practical ways. And so again, this is an exercise that you can do. Identify the destructive tendency again, and then just really, how does it undermine God's plan for you and your family? And this is something like, Lord, show me what your plan is. Show me what your destiny is for my family, my family of origin, my kids and my spouse, but also my extended family. And what is going on that is undermining your intents or your plans for us, what you want for us. And show me how to pray. Are there patterns of behavior, patterns of speaking that are generational? What do I need to repent for on behalf of those family members, where this has been inherited, this type of culture has been inherited? Maybe it's passivity, maybe it's emotional distance, maybe it's one where the fathers just don't bond, or don't really actively and intentionally tell their kids about faith, but they leave it to the wife. It could be something like that. And you see a pattern in the men in your family, anything like that. Different addictions, where, whether it's the wife or the husband, there's always something in a generation that they do that's kind of giving your kids a skewed picture of roles, or a skewed picture of God in some way. And again, I'm trying not to be very specific because every family is different. And so I want to give you guys just some general outlines so you can just take those and use them with your family. We're not going to have a Q&A time today, but certainly please reach out. Email me, Tina at excuse me. Email me at tina@cultivateabetterlife.com with any questions that you may have concerning this lesson. That's all I have for today. God bless you, and I will see you next week.